Have you ever wondered if love can survive a test of wealth and status? What if you had to choose between real love and a future built on appearances? Can someone truly love you for who you are, or is it only the name and money that matter? This is the story of Larry Stephen, the heir to one of Nigeria's most powerful business empires. Larry has everything: wealth, power, and status. But there's one thing he can't seem to find: real love. When his father, Chief Stephen, sets a challenge to see who will pass the test of true love, Larry begins to wonder, who will truly care for him when he's not in his billionaire shoes? How far will people go to win his heart? And why would anyone pretend to be something they're not? As Larry returns home, he decides to test the waters. What if he posed as an ordinary security guard? Could he find someone who would love him without knowing who he truly was? And what happens when two women, one genuine and one pretending, fight for a place in his heart? Who will win and who will lose? This video is packed with drama, twists, and emotional moments that took days of careful planning, writing, and editing. It's a story of love, betrayal, and the test of authenticity. You'll be on the edge of your seat as questions keep piling up. Will Larry's test reveal the truth about those around him? Can true love survive the ultimate challenge? And who will be left standing at the end? Trust me, you won't want to miss how it all unfolds. Stick around to find out the answers to all these questions. Chief Stephen was a name that commanded respect across Nigeria. As the head of the Stephen Group of companies, one of the largest business empires in the country, he was known for his vast wealth and even more for his sharp wisdom. But of all his accomplishments, there was one thing Chief Stephen took the greatest pride in: his only son, Larry. Larry had spent the past few years studying medicine abroad, and with his return imminent, Chief Stephen was eager to discuss the future. Larry was known not only for his intelligence, but also for his handsomeness. Tall with smooth brown skin, curly hair, and a smile that could melt any heart. His charm was undeniable, and girls in town would have done anything to win his affection. Yet Larry wasn't interested in fake love, the kind that came with a price tag. He wanted real love, the kind that saw him for who he truly was, not for his father's wealth. One sunny afternoon, Chief Stephen called Larry to discuss a matter that had been on his mind. "My son," Chief Stephen said, his voice filled with pride, "I've always believed in you. You've always made me proud. But there's something important I must share. You promised me you would marry soon after your graduation. It's time to fulfill that promise." Larry chuckled lightly on the other end of the line. "Dad, don't worry. I'll find a good woman when I come back home." "I trust you, my son. But let me tell you this," Chief Stephen continued. "I've been keeping an eye on two young women at the company. Both of them are hardworking, respectful, beautiful, and well-educated. I think one of them could be a good match for you." Larry's eyebrow arched in amusement. "Wait, Dad, are you trying to choose a wife for me already?" Chief Stephen laughed softly. "I'm not forcing anything, Larry. I'm just trying to help. I think it might be worth considering them when you come home." "All right, Dad," Larry replied with a smile. "Let me get home first, and we'll talk more about this." But as Larry hung up, a new idea crept into his mind, an idea that would change everything. What if he returned home and acted as though he were just an ordinary man? What if he posed as a poor security guard at his father's company? This way, he could find out who truly loved him for who he was, not for his name or his family's wealth. His heart raced as he imagined how it might unfold. This, he thought, could be the best way to know who truly cared for him. The next morning, Larry stood in front of his mirror, his heart pounding with excitement. He quickly put on the security guard uniform that his father had arranged for him. It was faded blue, the kind worn by those who worked behind the scenes. He wore a worn-out face cap and rubber sandals, his appearance nothing like the polished man his family and everyone else knew him to be. Larry grinned to himself as he thought, "Let's see how this plays out." At Stephen Group of companies, no one recognized him. To the employees, Larry was just another security guard, nobody special. As he stood at the gate, broom in hand, he felt a strange sense of satisfaction. The workers walked past him, barely sparing a glance, except for one person, Sandra. She smiled warmly as she passed by. "Good morning, Ogre Security," she greeted politely. Larry's heart fluttered. "Good morning, madam," he replied, his voice low but respectful. Then there was Jessica. Jessica, on the other hand, walked past him without even acknowledging his presence. Her heels clicked sharply on the tiles, her perfume filling the air as she strutted by, completely ignoring the man at the gate. Larry couldn't help but chuckle. This is going to be interesting, he thought, shaking his head as he watched her disappear down the hallway. Days passed and Larry observed both Sandra and Jessica closely. Jessica had begun to change. She walked around the office with an air of entitlement, her heels clicking louder than ever. She no longer seemed like an ordinary worker. She began to carry herself as though she had already secured her spot as the future wife of the billionaire's son. One afternoon during lunch, she sat with her friends, her voice oozing with pride. "Some people here better start treating me with more respect. Very soon, I'll be the boss's daughter-in-law," she said, laughing loudly. Her friends clapped, clearly amused, but Jessica wasn't joking. "Once I marry the boss's son," she continued, "I'll make sure to fire all the people who talk behind my back." She even started giving orders as though she were already in charge. Larry was watching from a distance, shaking his head at her arrogance. But it wasn't just her pride that bothered him. It was the way she treated people. She would shout at cleaners, belittle the staff, and show no kindness. And then there was Sandra. Sandra was a stark contrast. She was always polite, never showing off, and respectful to everyone, no matter their position. One hot afternoon, Sandra walked past Larry at the gate, a bottle of cold water in her hand. She handed it to him with a smile. "Here, it's very hot today. You must be thirsty." Larry took the water, his heart swelling with appreciation. "Thank you so much, madam. You're too kind." It was small gestures like that, the ones that didn't need recognition, that made him see Sandra for who she truly was. She treated him with dignity, even though she didn't know his real identity. It was clear to Larry that Sandra had a heart of gold. One Friday afternoon, the tension in the office reached new heights when Jessica, dressed in a shiny red gown and gold accessories, walked in like she owned the place. She was ready to announce her place as the future daughter-in-law of Chief Stephen. "In case some of you don't know," she said loudly, "I will soon be married to the boss's son. If anyone's been gossiping about me, well, your time in this company is almost over." She was already planning her future, even though it hadn't even started yet. Jessica wasn't the only one who had her eyes on the prize. Sandra, who had been quietly typing her report, looked up calmly, unfazed by Jessica's arrogance. The two exchanged a tense moment before Jessica, with all her pride, confronted Sandra. "Sandra," she said in a mocking tone, "I think you should stop trying. You and I both know Chief Stephen has already spoken to us. But let's be honest, you can't compete with me. I'm more beautiful, more stylish, and I carry myself better. So step aside." Sandra blinked and, with a serene smile, replied, "I'm not in any competition with you, Jessica. You can have him if you want." Jessica scoffed. "Finally, some sense." But Sandra wasn't done yet. As she turned to walk away, she added quietly, "How can you be fighting over a man who isn't even here yet? We don't know if he'll like you or even me." The tension was palpable. Meanwhile, Larry, still in his security guard uniform, watched the entire exchange from a distance, smiling quietly to himself. Jessica was full of pride, but he saw through it. Her actions showed him exactly who she was, and it wasn't a pretty picture. Later that day, Larry found himself in another awkward confrontation with Jessica. She stormed up to him at the company gate, her heels clicking loudly on the pavement. "You," she snapped, "how dare you speak to me like that? Don't you know who I am? I'll have you fired." Larry stood his ground. "You talk like you've already won the lottery, Jessica. But let's be honest, just because Chief Stephen spoke to you doesn't mean you've already earned anything. You still don't know who you're marrying. How desperate can you be?" Jessica's face twisted with anger, but Larry was calm. He wasn't going to back down. "What did you just say?" Jessica shouted, her voice rising in fury. "I'll make sure you regret this." But Larry stood tall. "You're showing your true colors, Jessica," he said, his voice calm but firm. "And that's all I need to see." As Jessica stormed away, Larry couldn't help but laugh quietly to himself. This game is just getting started, he thought. The following week, everything changed. The atmosphere at Stephen Group of Companies was electric with whispers. A company-wide meeting had been called, and no one knew what to expect. As everyone gathered in the conference room, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Could this be the day Chief Stephen would announce who would take over his position? Or would he finally reveal his son, Larry, and the mystery behind the humble security guard? But when Chief Stephen walked into the room, it was clear that today would be different. He announced that he was retiring and stepping aside, leaving everyone shocked. But then came the big reveal. "My son, Larry, is coming home soon," Chief Stephen said with a smile. "But until he returns, someone else will represent me." Everyone was on edge. Could this be the moment they'd all been waiting for? Larry, still in his security guard uniform, stood quietly by the door as the staff waited for the big announcement. Chief Stephen looked around the room, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "The person taking over for me," he said with a slight pause, "is someone you may already know." The room was silent as Chief Stephen's words hung in the air. The staff exchanged puzzled looks, whispers filling the space as they anxiously awaited the big reveal. "Allow me to introduce you to Mr. Raymond," Chief Stephen continued, a warm smile spreading across his face. "He will be temporarily representing me until my son Larry arrives." The staff erupted in applause, some with genuine appreciation, others with curiosity about the new arrival. Larry, still dressed as the humble security guard, stood by the door, his face unreadable. He watched Jessica's eyes widen in disbelief as Mr. Raymond walked into the room, looking sharp in a tailored suit. He was everything Jessica had hoped for, polished, confident, and strikingly handsome. His charm was undeniable, and Larry could see Jessica's attention shift entirely. Jessica's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for Chief Stephen's son, but now here was another potential candidate. She whispered to her friend, her voice full of excitement, "Look at him. He's so handsome. He might be the one after all." Her friend raised an eyebrow. "But what about Chief Stephen's son?" Jessica rolled her eyes dramatically. "Who said I can't have both? If the son takes too long, Mr. Raymond is a fine backup." She smirked as she saw Mr. Raymond chatting with a few other staff members. She was already planning her next move. But as Jessica continued to flirt with Mr. Raymond, Larry couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment. She didn't even notice him, the man who had been standing right in front of her every day. She was so consumed by her desire to secure a position of wealth and status that she overlooked everything else. But there was something that gnawed at Larry. Sandra, on the other hand, was calm and collected. She didn't get swept up by the drama. She was focused, quietly typing her report in the corner, her demeanor unaffected by the arrival of Mr. Raymond or Jessica's loud proclamations. She had always been different, and Larry admired that. Later that day, as the office returned to its usual rhythm, Larry stood by the gate, pretending to check the security log. His thoughts were racing. What was he doing? Was this the right decision? Should he continue this charade? And then he saw her, Sandra. Her smile was warm and genuine, and she waved as she passed by him on her way out. This time, she wasn't just being polite. Larry gathered the courage to approach her. "Sandra, can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked, his heart thumping in his chest. Sandra stopped and turned to him. "Of course," she replied, her voice soft but inviting. They walked to a quieter corner, away from prying eyes. Larry hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Sandra, I don't know how to say this, but I have to. I really like you." "No, I think I love you. I know I'm just a security guard and I don't have much to offer, but my heart is real. Will you be my girlfriend?" Sandra's eyes widened in surprise. She was silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on him. Larry's heart raced. He had taken a huge leap, but he wasn't prepared for what came next. "I like you too, Larry," she said softly. "I've liked you from the moment I saw you, but I was waiting for you to say it first. I didn't want to seem too eager." Larry blinked in surprise. "Really? You've been waiting for me?" Sandra nodded, her face breaking into a shy smile. "Yes, I love the way you carry yourself. Calm, respectful, humble. You make me feel safe, Larry. That's what I want." Larry was speechless. He had never imagined that the woman he admired so much had been watching him with the same affection. "Thank you for accepting me, Sandra," he said, his voice thick with emotion. You don't know how happy I am right now." But just as the moment of joy set in, Sandra's expression became serious. "There's one thing, though," she added, her tone cautious. Larry's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "We need to keep this relationship private, at least for now," Sandra explained. "This office is full of gossipers, especially Jessica. If she finds out, she'll ruin everything." Larry smiled and nodded. "I promise. It'll be just between us." Meanwhile, Jessica was not one to let go easily. As the days passed, she grew more suspicious. Sandra and Larry's secret smiles were hard to miss, and the cleaner had started reporting things back to her. One evening after work, she put her plan into motion. She would follow Larry and see what was really going on. She hid behind a small wall near the back gate, watching as Larry and Sandra stood close, talking quietly. Then, to her shock, they kissed. The cleaner, who had been watching from a distance, gasped in horror and quickly ran back to the building. The next morning, Jessica wasted no time confronting the cleaner. "Did you see anything?" she demanded, her voice tight with anger. The cleaner hesitated, then whispered, "I saw them kissing behind the building." "They're dating." Jessica's face turned crimson with rage. "What?" she spat. "I knew it. That's Sandra. She's been pretending to be innocent this whole time." The plot thickened. Jessica's fury boiled over as she decided to take matters into her own hands. That afternoon, she confronted Sandra directly in the office. "I know your secret, Sandra," she said with a smirk. "You've been sneaking around with that poor security guard. I saw you two kissing behind the building." Sandra's eyes were calm as she looked at Jessica. "So what?" she asked, unfazed. Jessica's eyes widened in disbelief. "What do you mean, so what? I'm going to report you to Chief Stephen. You'll be fired, and that useless boy of yours will be kicked to the curb." Sandra raised an eyebrow. "You think that's going to work on me? Because I know your secret too, Jessica. I know about your little rendezvous with Mr. Raymond." The silence between them was deafening. Jessica stood frozen as Sandra dialed a number on her phone. "Hello, Chief Stephen? It's Sandra. I just wanted to let you know that I'm no longer interested in your son. I found someone else. I'm in love with Larry." There was a long pause on the line. Chief Stephen's voice came through clearly. "No problem at all, my dear. I appreciate your honesty. Please come by my house this weekend. We'll talk." Sandra hung up the phone with a smile, her heart light with relief. But Jessica was still standing there, her mouth agape. Before Jessica could say anything, Sandra turned to her, her expression calm but firm. "Now you can go ahead and report me to Chief Stephen, but I've already made my choice, and I'm not afraid of you." Jessica was frozen in place, her mind racing. How could Sandra have done this? How had she managed to get one over on her? "You think I'm afraid of you, Jessica?" Sandra said with a smirk. "You only have yourself to blame. You thought you could play me, but you were wrong. I don't need to fight for attention like you do." Jessica, on the verge of boiling over with anger, let out a sharp, frustrated breath. "You don't know who you're messing with," she spat, her eyes glaring daggers. Sandra simply smiled, turning on her heel. "Oh, I know exactly who I'm messing with," she replied calmly. "And if I were you, I'd start thinking about how to clean up the mess I'm about to leave you in." With that, Sandra walked away, leaving Jessica standing there, her face turning bright red with rage. Meanwhile, Larry, completely unaware of the brewing storm in the office, was having his own quiet moment of reflection. That evening, he sat in his small quarters, his thoughts drifting to the days he had spent observing his colleagues. His heart was heavy, but it wasn't because of the drama with Jessica. It was because he had finally found someone real, someone who loved him for who he truly was, not for his father's name. Sandra. He smiled to himself, thinking back to the simple moments they shared. Her bringing him cold water on a hot day, their quiet conversations, the bond that had formed between them. He had found the one person who truly understood him. As he sat on his bed, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his father. "Larry, tomorrow is the day. It's time to reveal yourself. I'm proud of the man you've become." Larry sat back, his heart pounding. He had known the day would come when he'd have to reveal his true identity. But now that the moment was almost here, he couldn't help but feel a sense of nervous excitement. This wasn't just about finding love. It was about showing the world who he was and allowing those who truly cared about him to see him for who he really was. The next day, the office was buzzing with anticipation. Staff members whispered excitedly in the corridors, exchanging speculations about the announcement Chief Stephen would make. Even Jessica, who had been so confident in her victory, seemed a little uncertain. She knew something was about to change, but she couldn't quite put her finger on what. At the appointed time, everyone gathered in the conference room. The air was thick with expectation. Chief Stephen walked in, his usual calm demeanor betraying a flicker of excitement behind his eyes. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "I've invited you all here today for a special reason." The staff sat at attention, eyes wide with curiosity. "Today, I'm making an announcement about my son, Larry." As Larry stepped into the room, the transformation was undeniable. Gone was the humble security guard in the faded blue uniform. Instead, the man who walked in was every bit the polished, well-groomed heir to Stephen Group of companies. He wore a sharp designer suit, a gleaming gold wristwatch, and a confident smile that had been absent just days before. Gasps filled the room. Jessica's eyes widened in disbelief. She blinked several times, trying to process what she was seeing. She had been so sure that Larry was just a lowly security guard, someone to be ignored, dismissed, and looked down upon. But now, as he walked into the room, Larry was unmistakably the man she had been hoping for all along. He walked straight to his father's side, standing tall and proud. "Good morning, everyone," Larry said with a calm and collected voice. "I'm Dr. Larry Stephen, and I've been waiting for this moment. Today, I'm taking over the company." The room fell completely silent. Jessica's mouth dropped open as she looked from Larry to Chief Stephen and back again, her mind reeling. How could this have happened? How could she have been so wrong? "You see, Jessica," Larry began, his voice cool but firm, "I was testing something. I wanted to see who would care for me, not for my last name or my wealth, but for the man I am." He turned to Sandra, who had been watching quietly from the corner of the room, her eyes full of admiration. "And Sandra," Larry continued, a smile tugging at his lips, "she passed the test with flying colors. She loved me when I was at my lowest, when I was nothing more than a poor security guard. She saw my heart before she saw my name, and that's why she's the one I'm choosing. Sandra, you've proven yourself time and time again." Sandra's eyes filled with tears as she stood up and walked toward Larry. "I love you too, Larry," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. "I knew there was something special about you, and today I'm just happy to be standing here by your side." The room was filled with applause, but not everyone was clapping. Jessica stood frozen, her face pale as she tried to process what had just happened. This wasn't the fairy tale she had envisioned. It was the harsh reality. "You failed the test, Jessica," Larry said, his voice stern but filled with disappointment. "You only saw value in me when you thought I was someone important. You never bothered to look deeper to see who I really was. You wanted the riches and the title, but you never cared about the heart, and that's why you'll never have what Sandra and I share." Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes as she scrambled to explain herself. "Please, Larry," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I didn't know. I didn't know you were the one. I thought..." But her words fell flat. "You didn't know because you never cared to know," Larry replied calmly. "You judged me based on the uniform I wore, not the person I was inside." The tension in the room was palpable. Jessica stood, her face red with embarrassment and fury. She had no idea how to respond. The man she had thought would be her ticket to wealth was the very person she had disrespected. Larry turned to his father, who was watching the scene unfold with a proud smile. "Dad," Larry said, looking at him with a glint of mischief in his eyes, "I think it's time for a new beginning." Chief Stephen nodded, his pride evident in every movement. "You're right, my son. This is just the beginning." The drama had come to an end, but for Larry and Sandra, it was just the beginning of a new chapter. 2 weeks later at Chief Stephen's mansion, the air was thick with excitement. A grand celebration had been planned, but no one knew what was about to happen. The lights dimmed as soft music began to play, and all eyes turned to Larry, who stood in the middle of the garden, a single rose in his hand. "Sandra," he began, his voice filled with emotion, "the day I met you, I was just a gatekeeper. But you treated me like I was a king. You loved me for who I truly was, not for the wealth I inherited. And now, I want to spend the rest of my life with you." As Larry dropped to one knee and opened a small velvet box, Sandra's face lit up with joy. "Sandra, will you marry me?" Tears filled Sandra's eyes as she gasped, her heart full. "Yes, yes, Larry," she cried, throwing her arms around him. The crowd erupted into applause as Larry placed the ring on her finger, sealing their commitment to each other. The wedding was nothing short of a fairy tale. But for Jessica, there would be no happily ever after. She had lost everything because she had been too focused on the wrong things. As for Sandra and Larry, their love story had just begun, and they would face the future side by side, knowing that true love was worth more than anything money could buy. And so, dear viewers, what can we learn from this dramatic tale? Was it the power of love that made all the difference? Or was it the value of seeing people for who they really are, beyond the surface? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. And make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.